Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jeevanam Kavipiritam Kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadatatam Bhuviganantiye Bhurida Janaha. So we were discussing the conversation which took place in which Sri Ramakrishna was discussing certain things with Hajra Mahashay. Now that was 5th June, and on the day of the new moon, which happened to be Tuesday, the same day in the evening, Aarti is being performed in the Dakshineshwar temple. And naturally before that, conch shells, which is known as Shankha, bells and some other instruments are being sounded in the 12 Shiva temples, in Radhakanta's temple and that of Mother Bhavatarini. Those who have seen the Dakshineshwar campus, they will see on the left hand side, as soon as you enter the main gate, on the left hand side you will find the 12 on the left hand side. As you enter, on the left hand side you will find the Radhakanta temple, and on the right hand side you will find these 12 Shiva temples, and after Radhakanta temple on the left is Mother Bhavatarini's temple. So the Aarti is over and Sri Ramakrishna passes through his own room to the southern veranda. So he was in his room, but his room had many verandas. The western veranda, which overlooked the Ganga, and there was a southern veranda, which was a very big veranda where sometimes, because there was less space in the room, in the main room where Thakur used to live, when the gathering was quite large, they used to assemble in the southern veranda. So those who have visited Dakshineshwar, they'll get an idea of what the southern veranda, western veranda and other things. It is pitch dark, but the lamps are lit at various places in the temple. The Bhagirathi, that is Bhagirathi is another name for Ganga, reflects the dark sky on its bosom. It is the day of the new moon, and so Sri Ramakrishna has slipped easily into bhava. They say the mental vibrations on the new moon day or the full moon day, whenever there is a high tide, during such periods, auspicious periods, the mental activity becomes very intense. Of course, it is for people whose minds are not in proper shape or who have some mental problems, the problem can be aggravated. But at the same time, for people who are pursuing spiritual practices, for those who are engaged in japa and all those sadhanas which deal with the mind, these periods are the best days when one can get the benefit of the tidal waves caused by the moon. The moon has some effect on the gravitational forces on the earth, and it is the pull of the moon that gives rise to the high tides. It is a well-known fact, and since our body is more than 60% of water, naturally the effect on the tide of the tides or effect of the full moon or the new moon is definitely felt, and on our brains or the whole entire circulatory system. So that gives rise to a conducive atmosphere, provided you are positive in your approach. If the mind is positive, then that positivity is increased. If it is negative, then of course a person suffers. So you will find some people who have mental illnesses, they get aggravated, especially during these periods. So M is mentioning this, that today is the day of the new moon, and because Sri Ramakrishna was always thinking higher thoughts, and at the slightest inspiration he got from either somebody speaking certain things or singing some song, he used to go into the deep state of samadhi. And on these days, M observes that he slipped easily into a bhava. Bhava is a result of intense thinking on a particular idea or a particular feeling which is uppermost in your mind. Maybe that bhava is mostly due to bhakti. So wherever feeling is involved and emotional attachment to the Ishta is involved, we'll find that the bhava increases. Today's bhava is becoming intense. From time to time, he's uttering Om. So today his bhava was different. It was not dedicated to any, it was not concerning any particular deity like Bhavatarani or Krishna or somebody else, and not the mother's name. So here M says, today he is in the bhava of Om, just Om, the Nirguna Nirakara Brahman, as they say. So naturally, mother was not the important topic of discussion on that day. And perhaps that is the reason why he was always in that mood of Om, the which is also known as Shabda Brahman. It is hot weather and the room is very hot. So all of them have come to the veranda where at least you could have a nice cool breeze. A devotee's offering of a thinly woven mat is now spread on the veranda. And these days, M observes, Thakur thinks about Divine Mother all the 24 hours. You can imagine what an intensity of thought Sri Ramakrishna had during that period. He talks in a whisper with Mani as he lies on the mat. Then Sri Ramakrishna says, addressing M, look, the Lord can be seen. So and so has seen him, but please don't talk of it to others. Well, which one do you like better, God with form or God without form? So the first thing is asserting is that God can be seen. And so many people also have seen him. But at the same time, he says, don't talk of it to others, because there will be skeptics, there will be agnostics who will harm your faith if you tell about your visions and other things. Even if they are genuine, there is a chance that even Sri Ramakrishna, when Naren himself said, all your visions are hallucinations. So he used to get worried, and like a child used to go and ask the Divine Mother and ask her to prove that the visions were true. Though he himself has said many times, what are the signs a devotee has, a sadhaka has, when he has true visions, and how to distinguish them from hallucinations. But in any case, he is asking M that which one do you like better, God with form or God without form? So Mani answers. Mani means here it is M. He used to use different pseudonyms, and he used to note down the conversations which took place between him and Sri Ramakrishna and others under this pseudonym, so that people would not feel that it is only one person who is asking questions. Of course, there were other people there, but many times instead of writing M, he would write Mani, as if some third person was asking a question. But actually Mani, M, and he used certain other, a devotee. Sometimes he used to write devotee also. So he used to use many pseudonyms. So Mani asks, at present I have greater liking for God without form. So he doesn't want to disclose who this Mani is. He just says that because that was irrelevant. People do not need to know who was that person, Mani, who believed or who had a greater liking for God without form. So he did not want to expose who this Mani was, and he did not want to tell the people that that is what he believed in. So instead of writing M, he is writing Mani here. Even so, I am realizing gradually that he has taken all the different forms. So he is accepting that also. He is accepting the fact that I accept God with forms, but at present I would prefer to worship God without form. Can all of you see me? Somebody has messaged that they cannot see me. I don't know why. Anyway, so Sri Ramakrishna is asking now, asking Mani, that is M. Look, can you take me by carriage to the Mati Seal lake in Belghoria? Mati Seal, Mati is actually Moti Seal. They pronounce it as Moti, but actually it is Mati. Mati means mind. Mati Seal was the name of a person, and this lake was named after him. There was a big lake in Belghoria. Belghoria is a part of Kolkata. So Sri Ramakrishna is asking him to take him to the Mati Seal lake in Belghoria. And there, Sri Ramakrishna used to go, allowed to go and feed the fish. So he says, if you throw like a small child, Sri Ramakrishna used to enjoy this sight. If you throw a little puffed rice in the lake, all the fish gather to eat it. Oh, how the fish swim playfully. It is such a joyful sight. You will feel inspired, as if the fish of Atman is sporting in the sea of Satchidananda. You see, a simple event. Many of us go to different lakes, to different water bodies, even rivers, and then throw stuff into the river and enjoy seeing the fish. But we cannot read anything deep into it. Whereas for Sri Ramakrishna, even this trivial thing like feeding puffed rice to the fish and seeing them all gather together was a joyful sight. He felt inspiration from that. So there are many people, for example, when he went to the zoo to see the lion, people thought that Alipur Zoo is still one of the biggest zoos in India. And it was there even during the British period when the British were ruling India. It was a very nicely developed zoo, and Swamiji and others have visited it several times and made comments on Darwin's theory. Swamiji has gone there. So they tried to take Thakur. Perhaps that was the only time he went to a zoo. But he enjoyed it. The first thing, unfortunately, they showed him, not for unfortunately, maybe it is fortunate that he visited the lion first. So as soon as he entered the zoo, he saw the lion, and that reminded him of Mother Durga, because the Vahana or the vehicle on which Durga travels or uses, each deity in Indian mythology has a particular animal. Ganesha has a rat, and there are so many, all animals are considered different aspects of the divinity because they are special, they have a special status with reference to certain deities. And Durga always rides a lion. So the moment Sri Ramakrishna saw a lion, he went into Samadhi and they had to bring him back to Dakshineshwar. He could not see the other exhibits. They wanted to see him, show him the other animals in the zoo. But he went into such a high mood, he found it difficult to bring it down to the gross. So even seeing of a lion reminded him of Mother Durga. So also the fish reminded him of the impersonal God or the sea of Satchidananda, the ocean of Satchidananda as it is known. And the fish were like so many jivatmas floating in the sea of Satchidananda. Sat is eternal existence, just like that ocean. Chit is the consciousness that there is water inside, water outside. Imagine you are a fish and you are swimming in the ocean of Satchidananda. Then you see consciousness everywhere. You see the consciousness within you and the same consciousness you see outside, the all-pervading consciousness which you see outside. So he was feeling as if the fish of the Atman is sporting in the sea of Satchidananda. Our Jivatmas, our small Atmas, the fish like the small Atmas, all are floating in that, or floating or swimming playfully, just as the incarnations they also, having realized the Atman, having realized the immanent God and also the transcendent aspect of divinity, they feel that whatever they do, they are swimming as joyfully as this little fish. So in the same way, Sri Ramakrishna says, and on the way to Bulgaria, in those days there were a lot of very, very big open fields. It was not as congested as it is now. There were vast and open fields, and Sri Ramakrishna was always inspired by these grasslands. He says, if you stand in a big open field, you are inspired by the Lord. You feel as if though you were a fish from an earthen pot which has jumped into the lake. So whether you stand in the vast spaces which overlooks a big field, open field, or if you are in floating or swimming in the ocean of Satchidananda, or a big lake, you feel as if you were restricted, as people are restricted by staying in the world. Their homes or their worldly attachments are like the earthen pot. And the moment that earthen pot, the fish manages to jump out from that earthen pot and get rid of all the attachment he had for the water that was contained in the pot, then it can merge itself in the vast ocean of Satchidananda. That's what Sri Ramakrishna wants to experience. He had experienced it several times. So that's why he's asking him, can you take me by carriage? He could not walk, obviously, it was very far. So he's requesting him just to see the fish swimming, not out of curiosity like children go to the zoo, but his purpose of going to these places, this Belgoria Mati Seals lake, which was a big lake. Obviously, there were a lot of fishes there. And if we started feeding puffed rice, moody as it is known in Bengali language, the fish would all flock there. And he used to get delighted by seeing this, because that reminded him of the impersonal God. And as M has remarked earlier, that he was in the mood of Om that day. There was no Divine Mother, only Om, because Om reminded him of the infinite Satchidananda. So Sri Ramakrishna could move from one mood to another very effortlessly, as if he was moving from one room to another. Sometimes he would be in ecstasy, thinking of the personal God, either Krishna or Kali or any other deity. At the very next moment, you would see him meditating on the God meditating on Satchidananda, the ocean of Satchidananda, as if he's a follower of the formless God. So he is saying, you don't worry, he's telling Mani, it's good that you believe in the formless God, but don't think people who worship God with form are wrong. They are also worshipping God in a different way, but ultimately they will reach the same goal. So Sri Ramakrishna says, you have to perform sadhana if you wish to see him. First he says, all can see him. Many have seen him even now. And then he says, you have to perform sadhana if you wish to see him or experience him, experience the presence of God. He says, I myself have undergone very hard austerities. How many kinds of spiritual disciplines have I practiced under the Bale tree? The Bale tree is supposed to have special vibrations, especially for those who believe in Shakti. The Tantric sadhana, worship of the Divine Mother, is normally performed. Those who do sadhana, they prefer, like the banyan tree was famous for Buddha. Buddha used to meditate under the banyan tree, and many other people also meditate under the banyan tree because it gives a wonderful shade and protection from rain as well as the sun. Whereas the Bale tree is comparatively smaller, but somehow, since most of the sadhakas who practice the Tantra sadhana, they used to do sadhana at night. So the shade was not very important, but the Bale tree had some special prana in them. That's what they say. It's very easy. See, this Sri Ramakrishna is not just having some kind of superstition. There are no doubt many things or many facts of faith which are ordinarily understood as mere superstitions, there should be some effort on the part of people who want to know the truth behind these things to practice it themselves. Now, Sri Ramakrishna says that he has practiced a lot of sadhana and he got results under the Bilwa tree. So there is something special. There is something, though it may appear to be mysterious, why not meditate under any other tree? But the Bilwa tree is uh, supposed to be very important when you worship the Divine Mother. In fact, you see the birth of Holy Mother Sri Ma Sharda Devi, the indication that she will be born. A young girl, the mother of Sri Ma Sharda Devi, she was sitting opposite a bilwa tree and she sees a small girl climbing down, as it were, she was climbing down from that bilwa tree and entering her womb. And then after a few months, she gave birth to Ma Sharda Devi. So that also signifies that there is something significant. That bilwa tree is still there in Shihor. That is where she saw the vision of the young Divine Mother in the form of a small girl and giving her an indication that she'll be born to her. So he says, how many spiritual disciplines I have practiced under the bale tree? I would lie under the tree crying, Mother, please reveal yourself to me. My body would become drenched with tears. So you can imagine the amount of yearning he had to see the Divine Mother, to have a vision, not just believe in Mother and do some ritualistic puja. Though he was the pujari, his method of worship was unique. He never for a moment felt that the person or that the Divine Mother whom he was worshipping was a mere image. He thought of her as a living being until he got a realization or a experience that the image was real, as real or more real than the human beings or the people around him. It is only then he was uh, able to compose himself. Otherwise, he was very restless. And as he himself says, he used to go sit under the bilwa tree because he had heard that if we do sadhana under the bilwa tree, you'll get very quick results. So his body would become drenched with tears. You can imagine what kind of struggle or what kind of yearning he had to have a vision, somehow have a vision of the Divine Mother, if she were true. That shows the 100% sincerity with which he prayed. And he said also, he told later many devotees in the gospel, you will see, people consider so many things in their life so important for them. People shed tears of, he used to say, jugs of tears for money, for wealth, and for after the loss of somebody near and dear, after the gross loss of some person dear to you. People shed tears for them. But who shed tears? Who has shed tears for the Divine Mother? If you do, then she is definitely bound to appear and show herself to you. So Mani says, you have undergone so many spiritual disciplines. How can people succeed in a moment? If you had to do so much, then we can well imagine how much others have to do. So they can't succeed in a moment. Can one construct a wall just by moving a finger all around the room? It is as impossible as that. You have to meticulously dig and then lay the foundation and then build a wall slowly, brick by brick. It's not going to happen just moving a finger all around the room. You can't build a wall. So just talking about God or just trying to remember him is not enough. One has to work hard to make it a fact, a matter of realization or a matter of experience. To experience God, you have to put in that kind of effort which Sri Ramakrishna had put. And he says, if you had to do that, you can imagine how much more we have to do. Sri Ramakrishna then smiles and says, Amrita says, a man, Amrita is somebody, some person is referring to somebody. A man lights a fire and 10 men take its heat sitting around it. And then this is very true. It is good to remain in the Leela, divine play, after having attained the Nitya, absolute. Now, this is a very important fact. I don't know whether M has taken a hint, but he has recorded it. Definitely would have meditated on what Sri Ramakrishna said. He says, if you had to do so much sadhana, how much more we have to do? But Sri Ramakrishna apparently gives him a hint that that is not the case. Just because I had to do doesn't mean you have to do. And then he gives a beautiful example. This shows how grace of God works. There's no fixed rule that you put in 1,000 pounds and then you will get so much interest and all those things. That may be true in the secular world, that you will get exactly what you put in. The law of conservation of energy may hold true, that whatever be the input, only that much output you can expect. You can't expect more. If you have to enhance the output, then you have to put some catalyst or something which will enhance its value and you get more output than what you have put in. But you have to, the law of karma doesn't change in the temporal world, in the secular world. But here Sri Ramakrishna is giving a hint. He says, but there is a thing known as God's grace. So instead of saying it directly, he is giving an example. And he says, and he is reminding Mani, that Amrita says, he is not saying that I am saying that. He is quoting somebody. He is so honest that he is quoting somebody and he is supporting that argument. He says, Amrita says, a man lights a fire and 10 men take its heat sitting around it. That means Sri Ramakrishna has lighted the fire by sadhana. Now, if those who are lucky to be part of that circle, the 10 men, as he says, 10 people who have not lighted the fire, they didn't have to take the effort of collecting the wood, gathering the wood and lighting the fire. Somebody has lit it for them. So some people may be lucky. They can just, all they have to do, the least they have to do is to sit around that person who has lit the fire and they get the benefit. And Sri Ramakrishna says, Amrita told me this example and it is very true. So that is why he says it is good to remain in the Leela, that is the divine play. That's why the book biography of Sri Ramakrishna has been named as the divine play of Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Ramakrishna Leela Prasanga. Because after Mukti or after realizing the Nitya, absolute, there are some people who continue the Leela for the benefit of others. It is like Sri Ramakrishna used to say, some people eat the mango because it is sweet and they eat it secretly. But there are other people who share the mango with others and enjoy it being shared with others. So also Sri Ramakrishna is giving a hint to our Mani that one may light the fire, but there is a chance that 10 people who are around also will get the heat. So that is the reason why Avtaras try to perform their Leela, divine Leela, even if they have realized. They don't have to do it, but all can't do it. They select a few people who can perform the Leela with them, who are Nitya Mukta. So after attaining to the Nitya, you remain in the Leela and that divine, that play then becomes divine. It's not a struggle anymore, but it is trying to distribute what you have acquired. Mani says, then Mani asks a question. But you said Leela is for enjoyment. He is asking the question. Says, is Leela just for enjoyment? I mean, are you enjoying the Leela? No doubt you are enjoying the Leela, but is that the main purpose of performing this Leela? Sri Ramakrishna says, no. Even this Leela is real. Though it appears to be just a drama, it is not like a drama. Look, bring some little offering when you come to me. Perhaps I should not say it myself. It may look egoistic. But I am also but I also say to other, please bring something worth 1 paisa. To Bhavnath I say, now Sri Ramakrishna is telling something entirely different. He says to Bhavnath, I always say, ask him, buy me beetle leaves for a paisa. A paisa was is very insignificant in these days, but those days it was not so insignificant. But anyway, then he says, have you noticed what bhakti Bhavnath has? Bhavnath is Narendra's faithful follower. You must bring Narendra here in a carriage. Bring something to eat for him also. It will do you a great deal of good, because he never allowed his other disciples to, many of his disciples, to eat food which was brought to Sri Ramakrishna. Of course, if it was offered to the Divine Mother, he would give everybody as prasad. But sometimes he would not give the food that was brought for him to everybody. But here he is telling Mani or M, you bring some food. We must bring Narendra here in the carriage. He is telling Bhavnath, and bring something to eat for him too. It will do you a great good. I mean, he is telling this to M, in fact, that whenever you get a chance, try to bring him in a carriage, because he is a great soul. By feeding him, it will benefit you a lot. Then comes a new topic. The discussion is still going on. Philosophy and skepticism. Now that is the new topic, but the conversation is the same. Sri Ramakrishna is slightly changing the topic. He says, Jnana and Bhakti are both paths to God realization. In the path of Bhakti, one has to observe more religious rules and rites, because Bhakti is a slow process, not slow, it is a more natural process where you give up your attachment slowly. So for that, a lot of rules and rites are prescribed, so that as you go on practicing these rituals, you become more and more attached to the Lord. And then slowly the jnana within you, or maybe your bhakti, increases. But in the path of jnana, if somebody commits an unscriptural deed, it gets destroyed and does no harm. But this is only for bhaktas, because they give a lot of importance to the karma or the rituals they do. But for a jnani, one who is established or who likes the path of jnana, it does these rules, rules which are applicable to bhaktas do not apply to them. It gets destroyed and does no harm. It's like a banana tree thrown into a roaring fire and is burnt. So Sri Ramakrishna is here comparing jnana to a roaring fire. But that path is difficult. The path of jnana is the path of reasoning, which sometimes makes one skeptical. That is the danger. He loses faith because of lack of bhakti. A person who wants to become a jnani, his reasoning may be right, but he has to be careful that he does not lose his shraddha or faith, a faith which is based on conviction. So that shraddha is very essential. The same shraddha, when you have for a personal God, is known as bhakti. So Swamiji, in his talk on Bhagavad Gita, which he delivered in San Francisco, he said the idea of shraddha was developed in Upanishads, and that was the germ, or that was the root from which the whole tradition of bhakti has come. So shraddha for Brahman or Satchidananda, when it is converted to faith with conviction directed towards a personal God, it becomes bhakti. So Swamiji believed that this idea of shraddha, which Nachiketa, which Yama discusses in the Kathopanishad, he said Nachiketa was full of shraddha. That means he was following the path of reasoning, but his reasoning was perfect. It did not make him skeptical. The danger of following the path of jnana is they don't believe in anything in the name of reason, and then they don't believe in even human beings. They become sort of negative people, hating everything. So he says, in case of a devotee who sincerely seeks, even if he becomes skeptical, he does not give up meditation on the Lord. If the ancestors of a person have been farmers, See how Sri Ramakrishna is giving such beautiful examples. He says the ancestors of even if the ancestors of a person have been farmers, he does not give up farming even if he has no crop for want of rain or because of heavy rain that year. So whatever be the circumstances, the gunas or the habits which are natural to you, they don't go away so easily. People persist in their swadharma. Whatever happens outside, circumstances may change, but they are their samskaras will not allow them to change because there was no rain or there was excess rain, the crop gets destroyed. It's only fickle minded people who keep changing their profession, who don't have the patience to work hard and try to realize the goal of life, goal of human life through that profession. They keep on changing. They think, oh, this is not a good profession, I should do that. So changing duties will not help us to change our gunas. Our gunas, we have to carefully select a profession which helps us to use the gunas that we already have. Rajas, tamas, and even tamas a little bit we have. Sattva, of course, is there. So all spiritually minded people should try to find out how much of sattva they have. Are they really so sattvic that they can give up work altogether? But if they have some rajas, then it is better they work out their karma first, and when they become more sattvic, they can give up all the work. So, lying down, Thakur is resting his head on a big pillow and continues talking. He says to Mani, my feet are aching. Please stroke them a little. So this was a privilege which Sri Ramakrishna gave to only a few of his disciples. Many times he would not allow even people to touch his feet. But Mani was so dear to him that he asks him on this pretext, because being a follower of formless God, he did not have that kind of devotion which bhaktas have for their guru or for their ishta. The Gyanis are bordering their ideas or their thoughts border around skepticism. So they don't have, even Swami Brahmananda when he first came, because he belonged to an aristocratic family, he did not feel like rubbing oil or pressing Sri Ramakrishna's feet, which is a sign of service to one's guru. So Sri Ramakrishna knew that, and to remove his ego, he deliberately asked him to do him some service, which he reluctantly did in the beginning. He thought it was a job which Latu and others should do. But Sri Ramakrishna said, no, you have to do it. He made him do it. So also, Mani was a aristocratic person who believed, whose Brahmo Samaj at least did not believe in such services rendered to a guru or a saintly person. But he says, my feet are aching, please stroke them a little. While rendering service to Thakur, the ocean of motiveless grace, Mani listens to the words of the Vedas that issue from his holy lips. So for Mani now, by now, he feels that every line of Sri Ramakrishna has been inspired as the Vedas are. And that gives him a wonderful opportunity that by serving his guru, he gets an opportunity to be in the presence, physical presence of the guru, and also as a bonus, receive some wonderful thoughts, which are, according to him, are Katha Amruta, Tava Katha Amrutam. The Amruta means the nectar of Sri Ramakrishna's words. Tapta Jivanam, for burning hearts, for burning lives which have burnt in this samsara, burnt because of the trials and tribulations of the world. Tapta Jivanam, Kavi, those whose words are glorified by the Kavis, that is Rishis. Kalmashapam, that which destroys all sin. So Sri Ramakrishna, that is the prayer which we recite before the gospel. Because these words which were recorded by the master, he himself felt that they were cleansing his heart, removing all his sins, and giving him a lot of peace. So now the conversation shifts to Another day, Friday, 15 June 1883, it happens to be Dasara day. And Sri Ramakrishna is with the devotees at Dakshineshwar temple. The conversation was about householder life. What is a householder's life and how to lead it? On Dasera day in Dakshineshwar, Rakhal, that is Swami Brahmananda, later on he became Swami Brahmananda, Adhar Sen, M. Rakhal's father and his father's father-in-law, all are there. It is Friday, 15 June 1883, the Dasara day, the 10th lunar day of the bright fortnight of Jyeshta. Devotees have come to see Sri Ramakrishna at the Dakshineshwar Kali temple. On the occasion of Dasara, Adhar and M have a holiday. Dasara is a national holiday in India even now. So naturally, that day, all these people who were working have taken this opportunity to visit Sri Ramakrishna, being an auspicious day. Dasera or Vijay Dashmi as it is also known. Rakhal's father, oh no, this is Dasara. Rakhal's father and his father's father-in-law have arrived. Rakhal's father is married for a second time. Perhaps his first wife has died. His father's wife had heard of Thakur a long time ago. He practices sadhana and has now come to see him. Thakur is sitting on a smaller cot after his meal. He glances at the father-in-law of Rakhal's father again and again. The devotees are sitting on the floor. The father-in-law of Rakhal's father asks the question. Maybe he is the father-in-law of his second marriage. Maybe his first wife died and he is married for the second time. Sir, can one attain Bhagwan while living in the household? Now this is the question. And Thakur is watching him because he was coming for the first time perhaps, because Rakhal and Rakhal's father have come here before. In fact, Rakhal's father only brought him to Sri Ramakrishna. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna smiles and says, why not? You can surely attain Bhagwan if you are while living in the household, but there is a condition. He says you have to live like a mud fish. It lives in the mud, but the mud does not stain its body. Sri Ramakrishna used to give the example of a lotus also, that no matter, even if the lotus is lotus normally grows in a pond or a lake, the water does not stick to it. Even if you pour water on a lotus, it just slides off the surface of the petals or the leaves. So also, mud fish is another example he gave. That fish, the body, the surface of that fish is so slimy that the moment the mud comes in contact with it, it doesn't stick to it. It just slips off. It does not stain the body. Or he says, giving another example, or live like a woman of easy virtue. She attends to all her household chores, but her mind remains tied to her lover. Fixing your mind on the Lord, attend to all your worldly work, but this is very difficult. I told Sri Ramakrishna is now explaining though it is possible, but for that matter, it doesn't mean that living such a life in the household is easy. And he gives another example, lest the father-in-law of Rakhal's father thinks that it is very easy to realize God while living in the household. So he is cautioning him also. He says, you can't place tamarind pickles and a pitcher of water in the room of a patient suffering from delirium. So delirium is normally, in those days, it was because of typhoid. And they said, they used to believe that if you give tamarind pickles or anything sour, the person will feel like drinking water, and drinking water was fatal. That's what Ayurveda believes. So they did not place tamarind pickles and a pitcher of water, a jug full of water, in the room of the patient. They removed everything, because seeing those things, the patient may be tempted to eat it, and if he eats it, he will not recover from typhoid. Just think of, and even he says not, he doesn't even have to eat it. Just think of the tamarind pickles and your mouth begins to water. So he's saying, that's why he says, comparing that to living in a household, he says, for a man, a woman is like tamarind pickles. Besides, the desire for sensuous enjoyment is ever there. It is like the pitcher of water. One can't find fault with this desire. It is that patient wants to drink the whole pitcher of water. Oh, how very hard it is. Worldly life has so many problems. So on one side, he is encouraging him, saying, why not? You can realize. But at the same time, lest he thinks it's, oh, and he gets consoled and he thinks, oh, now I am safe, I can do whatever I like. He says, no, no, these are the conditions. It's not easy to realize God. So he says how very hard it is. Worldly life has so many problems. If the householder comes this way, he is hit with a stick. If he goes that way, he is beaten with a broom. I mean, in a very funny way, he's saying he has nowhere to escape. If he tries to solve one problem, there's some other problem waiting for him. If the children cause some problems, then there is a wife, so that is, he's comparing it with a stick, and his relatives, and then his bosses. There's so many problems. If he follows another way, somebody throws a shoe at him. Besides, meditation on Bhagwan is not possible unless you get some time to practice in solitary place. If you want to make an ornament after melting gold, but you are frequently called away, how will you be able to melt it? So he's giving another beautiful example. There were a lot of Kamarpukur was full of goldsmiths. It was a very rich village. I mean, compared to other villages, and most the wealthy goldsmiths used to live there. So Sri Ramakrishna had a chance to observe how the goldsmiths used to keep the flame alive so that the gold melted, so that they can form it into different shapes. So he says, if you want to make an ornament, and if you are disturbed and taken away, then you can't do your job properly. You can't melt the gold and you can't make that ornament. So also in the worldly life, the moment you sit for meditation, the moment you try to do sadhana, so many things come and they drag you away. Then you can't perform that sadhana. If you want to husk rice, you have to do it alone by yourself. You have to occasionally pick out the grains of rice to examine whether or not they are properly husked. If you are called away a number of times while husking, how will you complete the husking job properly? So he's giving another example which was so common. When you husk it, you have to start it and finish it. You can't leave it and then come after some time, and then you will never be able to husk it. You have to do it in continuously so that you finish it, blow away all the husk, and then collect the rice, and then you are free. So Sri Ramakrishna is now telling the father-in-law of Rakhal's father that though it is possible, but at the same time it is as difficult as these three examples which he gave. Then he says, what is the way? That is the heading now. Develop deep dispassion, vairagya. His earlier story and conversation with Ganga Prasad. Ganga Prasad Sen was a Ayurvedic doctor. So the devotee asks, sir, is there a way? Now it may be M, because sometimes he used to write, or maybe it may be some other devotee, not Rakhal's father's father-in-law, maybe somebody else. And Sri Ramakrishna says, yes, there is. Difficulties are there, but they are by no means unsurmountable. They can be surmounted. So Sri Ramakrishna says, yes, there is. If you develop deep dispassion, you can succeed. What you know to be unreal should at once be given up forcibly. But this is a very important point. To give up and have an attachment for it and still think it is real, that is not the way. One has to be convinced or convince the mind that which is temporary. Here unreal means temporary. So it has to be given up forcibly. When I was ill, then he gives an example. I was taken to Ganga Prasad Sen. Ganga Prasad Sen said, you will have to take Swarna Patpati. Swarna Patpati was an Ayurvedic medicine where a little bit of gold was mixed in the medicine. But don't drink water. Instead, you take pomegranate juice. That's the only thing that was allowed with that, even if you feel thirsty. Everybody wondered how I could do without water. But I firmly resolved not to take it. I said to myself, I am a Paramahamsa. I am no ordinary Hamsa. I am a Rajhamsa, the king swan. So I shall take only milk. Even milk was allowed. So he says, I am not an ordinary Hamsa. I am a Rajhamsa. So I'll take milk. The Rajhamsa or the Paramahamsas had the capacity to separate and take only the milk and leave the water. That is what mythology says. Hamsa has two meanings actually. It means a swan, and other, it symbolizes a desireless sadhu or ascetic. So Hamsa is used for both. Paramhamsa. Paramhamsa is one who is supreme in his devotion, supreme in his dispassion also. And then he says, one should live in solitude for some days. When you have touched the grandma, there is no danger in being out of the game. Once you have been turned into gold, you can stay anywhere. If you gain bhakti by living in solitude, if you attain Bhagavan, you may even live in a family. Then this is what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, that the first condition, even if you are living in a household, is to be able or to have a desire to live in solitude for a few days occasionally. And then she says, when you touch the grandma, touching the grandma is a game where small kids, they used to run around and the grandma would be moving here and there. But the child who first touches the grandma is out of the game. He is free to go. Others have to still run around, and the moment the other person touches, he is also free. So, giving that example, Sri Ramakrishna is saying that somehow, if you go into solitude and develop some bhakti, then you can stay anywhere, in a household or a monastery or everywhere. If you gain bhakti by living in solitude, if you attain Bhagwan, you may even live in a family. To Rakhal's father. That is why I asked these boys to stay here. They will develop love for Bhagwan by living here a few days. Then, if they want, they can very well live in the family. Because Sri Ramakrishna did not want to antagonize Rakhal's father. Because Rakhal's father was a very shrewd person. He was a rich person, no doubt. And he felt his main idea in the beginning to introduce Rakhal to Sri Ramakrishna was very strange. He did not want him, he was not interested in spirituality also. But one thing he knew, that great people, very prominent people of Kolkata like Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, not Keshav Chandra Sen and the other Brahmo leaders, and there were many other rich people like Adar Sen, Balram Bose, they all used to frequent Dakshineshwar. So he thought, since these people come here, this person must be very important, the saint of Dakshineshwar. So my son, if he goes there, for his worldly prospects, it is a good idea to be in touch with these devotees who are very rich or maybe very prosperous. So he was more interested in establishing contacts with these influential people. And when he saw Rakhal slowly being transformed, he was a bit worried. So Sri Ramakrishna also very tactfully was handling the situation. He says, I will ask these boys to stay, though he was very much aware that these boys would ultimately become monks. But he did not tell this to their parents. He said, if they stay here, they will love for God. They will develop their love for God, and then they can, if they want, they can stay in their family. But before that, if they stay, they will be put into a lot of trouble. So it's better to train them here So in a way, he was trying to convince Rakhal's father that you don't disturb him or don't stop him from coming here. If he now and then if he comes here, as he told his father's father-in-law, that if he lives in solitude for some days, and if once you gain bhakti by living in solitude, if you attain Bhagwan, then it may be possible for him even to live in a family. So Sri Ramakrishna is starting another conversation on virtue and vice and sannyasa as a great institution which has been conceived of in India by great rishis and others for to be a malady of the world. It's a great panacea for the malady of the world. Means the idea is people who have this opportunity can go to monasteries and enjoy the company of these people who have renounced everything. So this institution of sannyasa, this occupation of sannyasa is a great medicine for the problems that worldly people face. So this topic we will take up in the next class. If there are some questions, I'll just answer them. Yes, there doesn't seem to be any question. If there is any question, you can just type, otherwise I will take your leave. We had almost 5 sessions in the last 3 days. On Friday, we had 2 sessions, Saturday, 2 sessions, and today is the last session for this week. So I shall take your leave. I don't see any question. So I'll take your leave. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. One question has popped up just now. How to show dispassion? The question itself is a little tricky. You don't have to show dispassion. You have to practice dispassion. Showing dispassion, how to get dispassion is fine. Fine, that is the question. So, how to get dispassion? Sri Ramakrishna himself is telling so beautifully. Anything that you know is temporary or is unreal, Anityam Asukham. That which does not last long can never give you happiness. That is the secret mantra of dispassion. So why should I have dispassion for certain things? If you know a thing does not belong to you, if you have gone, say, to play with a friend, and you know there is a toy, you may play with it for some time, but you are not attached to it. You are dispassionate towards it. You don't mind if that toy is taken away from you, because you know anyway, after I finish my play with my friend, anyway I have to go home and I won't be having this toy. So if you know, unfortunately we are deluded in a very mysterious way to think that all our possessions, all our things around us, which we try to gather around us, will stay with us permanently. Now that is the reason why dispassion doesn't come. Dispassion means to know for certain, to develop a conviction based on faith in the Lord, because Lord is the only person who will always remain with us, whether or not other things or other people live with us. They may come and they may go, as the toys come and go. We play with certain toys, but when we grow up, we develop a dispassion for those small toys. But when we were children, we were very keen, and if somebody took those toys, we used to cry out. The moment you realize that this toy is meaningless for me now, you develop a dispassion for that. So that is how one can get dispassion. One has to examine everything. As Kathopanishad says, Yama is telling Nachiketa, examine everything. Find out whether it is temporary or permanent, whether it is going to be eternally with you, or at least is it going to be for a longer time with you. First of all, give up things which are absolutely temporary, which you know, but in spite of that, still we run after these temporary things, like we run after a mirage. Swamiji says, so many times I used to see a mirage and think there is water, and when I am thirsty, I feel like going there. But the more I go, it recedes from me. But once you know it is a mirage, no matter how thirsty you are, you will definitely go straight ahead and say that I'm not going to be diverted by these silly mirage. I know it, there is no water there. It's just a illusion. So that kind of illusion, uh, feeling, that kind of knowledge of the illusion gives rise to dispassion. We are not passionate about the glamour and uh, the glamour of the world by because we know that it is shining and it will last just like that mirage. It will vanish the moment we go near it. So that is how, by examining the real the temporariness or maybe the eternal quality of certain things and certain ideas or certain people or certain concepts, we can develop dispassion towards those temporary things, towards those gross things, towards the things which we really don't need. We can live without that. Of course, you cannot have dispassion towards everything. You can't have dispassion towards life unless you have attained to some kind of state where it really doesn't matter if the body stays or goes. That is after realization. But till then, there are certain things which are more eternal or more less transient than some things. But certain things are absolutely transient. You know that. So first, we have to develop dispassion by giving up those things and then take up higher and higher things and see whether they are, how long they will last, how much value they have, what purpose they will serve in our life. All those things, after examining, then you have to discard them. That is how we can get dispassion. Okay. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.